First of all, I'm going to go over the colors using raw umber, titanium white, a little bit of linseed oil, a little bit of Liquin. I always like to have Q-tips on hand. You'll see why. To start, I'm going to be using a hog bristle brush. This is just to get my sketch lines in, kind of get those shapes going. Then after that, we're going to switch over to a couple little synthetic square guys. This is a 0 and a 1. This will be for laying in the more opaque paints. I like to use one for light, one for dark. Just makes it easier. You're also going to need some paper towel and, if you choose, a glove. So what I'm going to be doing a lot of is this, kind of fold in half, and then cleaning my brushes, kind of doing one of those, switching colors, etc. Just keep your hands clean. I don't really need one for this hand. Doesn't really get that dirty, so we're going to start working thin to thick. So we're going to dip into our Liquin first. This is what they call the fat overlaying rule. And that just means we're making a very lean paint. There's less oil in it, it's less fatty. We're just going to start out with just a very, very small amount. You can see it's mostly Liquin, just enough to tint. What I'm doing is kind of looking at the general shapes. What's the distance between the edge of the canvas and the edge of the design? This is how we sketch things in. Nice little lines. Kind of reference your reference photo. As we can see, so come down here, we have this next new shape. Hit that angle. If I come in here, you can look at the spacing between the center point and the edge, that darkness. It goes past that center line, comes back over. I'm just making that nice little shape. Now, you can kind of color that in quick. Go in, and we're just kind of get these shapes in. Not worrying about any details. All we're doing is creating shapes. And this is why we use the medium blur tool. Kind of does the squinting for us. When we squint, we lose detail, and we just see shapes, which is what we want to be doing. Details are not important at this stage. Now, coming into here, starting to see my shapes are a little too boxy. So we can go in, just exaggerate some things. So pull those edges out. Maybe extend this a little bit. And that's the whole point. Reference is just a starting point. This shape. Oh, guy. I like to think of this as just a warm-up. Kind of stretching the creative muscles. Just getting used to the shapes again. What we're really doing is kind of studying us at the same time. Studying what's in front, what's in behind, getting ourselves warmed up. Try to be active with this too. Don't try to be too passive. We're going to be thinking what we're going to be doing next. I know you don't know what's happening next yet, but it'll make sense when we get there. So now I'm just kind of, I have that basic general shape. Put some teeth in there. Why not? Wasn't sure if I was going to do the teeth, but. And then got this nice light shape right here. It's kind of paintings I like to end off kind of loose. Not everything has to go to the edge. Kind of just playing around. Pretty happy with that. I think all the angles are proper, and so we're going to keep going back in now. Now we're going to look at blocking in more shadows. So we know this area right here is mostly in shadow. So what we can do is just, again, create that basic shape and color it in. I'm just blocking. Got this deeper shadow over here. Don't be afraid to be rough at this point. So I'm going to show you in a minute here how you can kind of go in and adjust these very quickly and efficiently. This is the deepest point we got here and here. So the darkest bits, aside from the background. So we're just gonna do one of those. See, I'm still just kind of playing around. Nothing is tight at all. Everything very loose. And the reason I chose this object, this reference, is because when you really break it down to the shapes, and it's not attached to the skull of the bear, it doesn't look like that. Like, it doesn't. Since it is disconnected from the bear, we can see it as its own thing. You know, it's not like if you're drawing an eye or a nose, a face, just anything that the human eye instantly recognizes. When we're doing that, and if you're not experienced, it can be easy to get frustrated because it's not looking like the thing it's supposed to look like. But these don't have to look like anything. All that's important is where are your lights, where are your shadows, and does it have form? Is it believable? Now, I'm gonna go off the reference for a second here. I like this little shape. And this is very useful in abstract, is you're not like wildly moving when you fill these little areas with these little brush strokes. You're just moving quick. It's not that important. Not yet. Now we're going to grab some Q-tips. We're going to go into some of these shadow areas where we could use an extra little bit of light. Let's see, this is probably the best example. Going to go in, it's just going to remove some of that paint. Create that little V shape. Come over here, so it's a big highlight. Big highlight here. Just rubbing it all off. Goes down. Picks it up pretty quick, so swap to that other side. We're going to avoid doing any brush blending at this point. Never do brush blending in the beginning, so it can muddy things up. If you want, you can just use the Q-tip as well to do little blends while you're there. Just avoid brush blending at this stage. You don't want a lot of paint on the canvas yet. You want to figure all this out first. All these shapes. This is square guy. Over here. And then over here, like, there's this little fun zone. So again, you don't have to use the teeth. I sometimes use the edge of something just as this, it just creates a little shape. And then what I like to do is go in and kind of just create something myself. Now we're going to go back in, still using the lean. We're going to go back in, some more shadowing. And this is what I mean by blending right now. If we're going to be brush blending. So you're just using that little bit that you have left on your brush. Just push things around. And that's why I like using this brush. It doesn't put down a whole lot of paint. It gives it that scratchy kind of look. Very, very useful. Compared to a synthetic. Synthetic is going to put down a lot of pigment. Again, especially if you're a beginner, you don't want to be putting too much paint on at once. Just take your time. Breathe. If you get frustrated, take a step back. That big shadow right there. Got that V cut. Sky. Kind of just sketching right now, isn't it? Not painting much. Just whatever you see. You don't have to stick to what I'm doing exactly. You want to have a little fun. Put your own spin on it. And just let it happen organically. Like, this is a thing too, right? Keeping your brush on the canvas to create some shapes instead of always dab, 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 dab. Keep your brush down. I find it helps make things a bit more organic. Twist the brush a little bit. Remember, we're doing abstract. So now, I'm just gonna get the brush, just do some circles and grab it. Those circles. Clean that brush off. So now we're just gonna kind of go in, just refine. Now we're barely touching. Kind of soften some edges. So we can see it's a hard line up here in the reference, but it softens out. So we're barely touching. We just use the brush that we just cleaned off. It doesn't have to be a brand new one. Again, we're kind of just making a roadmap in our mind. So you're going to remember when we go back with this next layer, we're going to have already gone through these motions, understood the shapes, and then we're just going to repeat it. And if you want to be a bit more playful, bring these edges out a bit. It doesn't have to follow the exact path. It's just a reference, we're not copying it. Definitely want to keep these edges very soft if it's fading out. I guess what I'm going to show you on this one is light background, dark object. Where when we go to the gray canvas, I'll do the opposite. We're going to be doing a dark background with a lighter foreground. Just so you can see the difference, we're going to be repeating this shape 4 times. Okay, so now we're going to start laying in some darker tones. We're still going to stick with this guy for a bit. I like to just, again, it doesn't put down as much paint. And we're going to be using oil now to thin out the paint instead of the Liquin. Just a little bit of umber. Just get a nice mid-tone. Don't need much. Keep going until you find that mid-tone. It's good to me. Again, we don't want too much on, so I kind of squeeze some of that paint out. Okay, so let's start over here, work on that shape. Just kind of lightly pressing. And since we already have that umber in there, it's going to actually pick up in these paints. Kind of helps with those transitions. You can see here, this is kind of what we're looking for. Not fully opaque. Again, we don't want to be using too much thick paint at this point. We're going to build up to it. Again, we're just going to move around the canvas. Again, just focusing on these dark area transitions. So the rule is, it's always easier to put light over dark than it is dark over light. Which means once we have all these mid-tones and these dark tones, it's really easy to put the higher values on top. And that's because of the mixing factor. If you try to put really dark over really light, you're never gonna get a true dark. It's always gonna be the little kind of muddy looking. Here, we got transition. Something I always have to remind myself of too, is to keep that brush down. Just look at the shapes. We're not worrying about any details yet. Just shapes. Nothing is precious. We're pushing paint. We're not fully rendering anything. Now there are appropriate times to kind of be bounce around like this. In these kind of areas, you can see in the reference a lot of different things going on. So I like to sometimes just kind of, just place some stuff around. Again, we want to kind of, you see I started over here, and then we're kind of, no. We're going to kind of just keep doing that instead of just working in one little spot and refining. You want to get like a whole picture idea first. And then, once it looks right, we'll go in and refine. And that's the fun part. It's always the hardest part. Kind of controlling those urges to go in and do the fun stuff first. But it's when you get a little tunnel vision going on, which is never good. I haven't been mixing any other colors, just still using this little mid-tone. Now, even though I did say it's hard to put the darks over the lights, it doesn't mean we can't utilize that. All I mean is you're not going to get an extreme dark, like a pure dark color, if you go over top of something really light. But in like these areas, it's actually going to be pretty beneficial, as you'll see. Just follow that reference. Don't be afraid of strokes. Most of the time when I see people oil painting, and I was guilty of this too, I didn't like my stroke marks. I thought they sucked. I thought it looked unprofessional. I thought everything always had to be perfect, but once I broke out of that mentality, I love paint strokes now. So it gives something a bit more character. Okay, so pretty happy with that. Let's go in, get this lighter. So just dip on your brush. You don't want a whole lot. As you can see, that, and then just mix it into that mid-tone. Now, when we dip into the oil, you're barely touching it. You want to get as little as possible. If you get too much, you can just wipe it off. Just touch the side, kind of like that. That oil stretches out very, very far. Okay. So you can see here on the canvas, that was that mid-tone we were using. And this is the light tone. We want to have like a pretty decent jump in values. This isn't a pure white yet, but it's a pretty high value jump. So this is the lightest point we have here, there, there, just those three. Over here. Go to that next light point over here. And now you can see when you're going over and blending near the other pieces of paint, your white's going to pick some of that up. So you can utilize that when you're doing these like lighter tones, and you can just put a little hit here and there. So it's just a touch darker. And again, we don't want to stay in the area too long. Go in. This is how organic stuff is really fun. You can kind of just go in and push your brush around. It's nice. It's a good way to kind of let go of that. If you have that perfectionist control kind of state of mind when it comes to your paintings. Don't ignore this. So you can just do strokes. I think I changed my mind. I think we're going to do a dark background. I don't know though. We're going to see. Background does greatly affect the piece. Experiment with your hand pressure too. Obviously, the more you push, the more paint's going to go down. And just have fun. Don't be afraid to make quote-unquote mistakes. This is how we learn. This is the purpose of this. It's not for showing in a gallery. This isn't for getting clout on the internet or any of that. It's just fun. What we're doing is learning how the paint works, how it moves. One thing we also want to keep in mind is not filling the paint or the canvas with the paint too much. Because you can see we want these transparent shadows are very powerful. It completely changes the piece once you put opaque pigment all throughout the entire thing. It has its own unique look. I find it gives it a bit more of an acrylic look though. What we're trying to do is oil paint. This is something that acrylics just don't really do. Because they dry, they don't soft blend into each other. Okay, be happy with that. Okay, so now I'm going to switch over to my square brush. I'm going to start laying in those high highlights now. I'm not going to use a pure white. I'm still just going to mix into that last color that we just used. It's going to dull it down just a little bit. It's going to be just maybe 5% lighter. Touch of oil. Just barely anything. We're going to load this brush up. So now we're going to create hard edges. As you can see, the boar brush, or the badger, I can't remember what it is, but the animal hair brush, it's better at creating soft edges. These are better at creating sharp edges. I'll show you. You can see how sharp that is in comparison to the entire rest of the piece. Again, it's not a pure white. I'm just going to kind of go in, create edges. See that? Wow. Look at that. Real high point here. Sometimes I like to do this, kind of like a crisscross. Go one direction, change your brush, rotate, rotate, rotate. Extension down here, this guy. If you're having a hard time, if you're feeling frustrated at this point, remember, you need to take a step back. Literally. Take a step back, look at your reference, and look at your painting from a distance. It can make it very obvious where, maybe shadows are off, or shapes, or whatever is giving you grief. It can usually be seen by stepping away, or you can flip the canvas, literally take it and flip it. You can also take a phone picture and flip the orientation, so mirror the piece. When we do this, it makes our eyes and our mind see it differently. So we can only see it through our own eyes. But using a camera, it gives you a secondary perspective, almost like looking at it through someone else's eyes. It's just very, very important. As you can see, I'm not pushing very hard, just kind of where are those high points? What are the highest points? While simultaneously thinking about your edge control. Soft edge, hard edge. Very important part in all aspects of art. Again, not trying to be perfect. I'm just playing. And again, now, going into these areas, you can see it's almost like, I like to think of it like pixels. We have your darks, your mids, they're kind of a little scattered, and now we're kind of filling in some holes. But again, don't cover too much of that, that transparent first tone that we made. Just softening edges. And we gotta do something over here. I don't like this one. I don't want to go too light. The higher the contrast in an area, the more attention it's going to get. That's not a focal point for us. So I'm just going to kind of go in. Actually, I might just erase some. These are fun. This is like my go-to. I think of painting almost like sculpting. put those darks down first. We have those mid-tones, we bring that light up, then we erase it, bring some more darks, more lights. It's kind of a push-pull. Not happy with an area, you can just take it off. It's a good way just to kind of create some different shapes too. Kind of gets away from everything looking the same as far as stroke marks. This is why we like to use different brushes. Gives different effects for different areas. So I'm just going to go back in. I felt like this needed to go down lower. This shadow. And that's the best part about oil painting. If you quote unquote mess up an area, you can just erase it very, very easily. Do it again. Your initial outline or structure doesn't have to be perfect the first time around. You can always go back and change things. Remember, this is more of a study and a practice. It's not meant to be perfect. It's meant to learn. Sorry, it's meant to teach you the process of the oils. Just get used to how they feel. Again, pay attention to your hand pressure. A lot of the time you're barely touching. Okay, so now that we have those lights in there, in this area I'm going to work on these shadow areas again. Again, this is the push and pull. Right now, we're pushing things back. Again, using the boar bristle, the boar bristle. Because I don't want too much going down. It's funny, the boars will actually like kind of pick paint up, which can be annoying at times. But once you get used to it, it's more of an advantage. Now, in these areas where we're doing these shadows, keep in mind, like you don't always want to go, you don't want to be doing like this, right? Those stroke marks. This is again the beautiful part of these boar brushes. So you can really show direction. Create like little shapes with the strokes. Let's go up. Back into the shadows. Shadow there. At this point, one of the best piece of advice I can give is set it and forget it. Just move on. Don't obsess over an area. Move around. Remember to take a step back if you need to. Paint what you see. If you see certain shapes, go with it. You know, like here, I could raise this up now a little bit more. I could see this being coming forward a bit. So putting like a little shadow underneath that pops it up. And that's where we want to get creative. That's how I do it anyway. You can see when I'm doing these blacks, not the blacks, see when I'm doing these dark shadows, that's picking up some of that white that we laid down earlier. And go back in to make those transition shadows again. It's kind of like a rinse and repeat. Just kind of move around, move around. It's not for obsession. Not yet. We'll get to the obsessive part. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that so far. Now we're gonna go back in. Some more, not highlights, but the almost highlights. You're also gonna notice at this stage, we have had about 40 minutes go by. And during that time, these dry a little bit and become a little bit tacky. Which means now the paints are really going to adhere, going to bond with the other paints that are down. Sticky. As you can see, kind of just taking my white, just lightly, barely touching. And when you're doing this, it picks it up again, which again can be useful. I have a little chunk of dark from blending into there, so you can go in and be like, let's just put that over there, and then go back into my white mix. It's a lot of back and forth like that. Just doing a few bits, go back in, mix, a few bits, go back and mix. Now this is going to darken this over time. Let's just put a little bit more in there to counteract that pigment that we're picking up. Kind of want to do something a little different over here from the reference. See that light over that dark? Kind of gets rid of it. And this nice hard edge over here. I like that part in the reference. Kind of pick up that paint around, move it up, bring it back down. Get that nice transition. No dry brushing, not allowed. We're learning how to use the paint brushes in a different way. That's what I see everybody do. Just dry brush, dry brush, dry brush. Blend, blend, blend. And then it looks flat. You need some strokes. I think it makes it a bit more interesting than painting. Paintings that look like airbrushes. What's the point of using oil paints, in my opinion? shapes. Like this. This little dimple. Okay, so we can go into this area. I'm just going to make some, we're going to lighten this up a bit. Soft edge there. Kind of mixing on the canvas, right? I don't do a whole lot of mixing beforehand. If I need specific colors, I will at times. Now I'm being a bit more spontaneous with my movements, as you can see. But again, move around. Don't get trapped in an area. It's not what we want. That's when the frustrations really happen. Yeah. You can see right here, it's very dark, very soft. So this is where we can be a bit more decisive about edges, I think. A harder edge there. And if not, if you don't like it, go ahead and change it. Change it back. You can erase it. You can use the Q-tips, you can use cloth. Just get it off and do it again. Don't be afraid to erase things. I've done paintings where I've erased essentially the whole fucking thing. And I'm glad I did. Because I was sitting there and just hitting my head against the wall at why I couldn't make it work. And it was just, that area was wrong. The contrasts were off and everything was kind of off. So, yeah, pretty much just erase the entire thing and start again. Entire sections I've worked on, pieces where I'm working on like a face or something like that. I already did the body. And then I erased the entire face, just kind of smudged it out. Started again. You'll thank yourself in the end for doing that. Don't be afraid. Sometimes you have to say fuck it. And just see what happens. Last steps. We need to, you can see in my example, we need to kind of round out this shape. And now I'm going almost into pure white. Almost. And that's just because we have all that paint down, so it's not going to end up being pure white in the end. This is now where I like to do these textures. Edge. cool white edge. Just blending. Again, picking up that paint with my brush. Okay, so now we're going to go in with a nice soft brush. We're going to do a little bit of blending. You want to use a synthetic for this, another square brush. We're just going to go in and create some softer edges. And we're barely touching. Barely touching. You can see now those little gaps are being filled. Just pushing the paint around. Not too much though. Remember, we don't want to fill all those transparent shadows. Now this is going to eliminate some of your stroke marks, but that's okay. So it's a push-pull system. Right now we're getting rid of some of the hard edges and blending those paints that we have sat next to each other. As we go to the edges, we want to diffuse them a little bit. And again, selectively choose where we want the hard edges to be. And doing this, you can kind of really push in at these bottom parts and kind of fuzz them out. Again, that is not focal point. This is. Be loose. No, this is not a Rembrandt. I actually like that little shape down here. And this is the importance of what can happen when you're being loose. You know, I went a little outside that shape, but I really like that, so I think that makes it a bit more interesting. Than the shape that was there before. A little bit more of an angle. You can even bring this up a little bit with the whites. Now I'm going back in with it's more of a mid-dark tone. It's not dark, but it's not light either. Again, I'm using my synthetic brush. It puts down more pigment. See, bring that hard edge back. You can see though, it's not as dark as over here because I pushed it into the other tones. That's exactly what I was talking about earlier. Never going to get as dark of a tone laying it over top of the whites. Okay, loose and free. Loose and free. What I'm going to do is take that same tone. We're going to make some more shapes. I think we're going to do some stroke marks. You can see it's all just this dotted kind of look. So come in, create a bit more round shapes, as if it's curling. Again, this is your stroke directions coming into play. Just give it a little bit more depth. Just going to go in and just do some final highlighting. And just a touch of oil. Don't make it too thin though. If you make it too thin, just put more paint. Kind of push to the side. This is oily. Push to the side. Yep. And go back in until you find that nice consistency. I want these last strokes to stay as strokes. These will not be blended. Creating little holes. Highlight over here. Now, whenever we see these little guys, you know, these little holes, if you want it to look like a hole, put a little highlight underneath it. And you don't have to make yours look like mine. I want your art to look like your art. You know? You get 100 people to do this exact same painting, it's going to look a little different every time. What you want to do is paint the way that you paint. Stop trying to imitate. Just create your own. Yeah. Now, if you really want, you can go into those Q-tips. Kind of soften those edges. Because if something is curling around, it's going to be a soft edge. Which we can do also with the brush. And just unwanted paint. You can kind of see this edge is very sharp. This one's a little dull. Same with this guy. So go in for little corrections. And that's the difference between the sharp and dark edges. Sorry, that's the difference between the sharp and soft edges. So sharps will pull forward. Soft edges fade back. I'm just a little oil. Just wash my brush a little bit. Let's go back into this pure raw umber. So I'm gonna give this a dark, crisp edge. Nice crisp edge. Yeah, see how that pulls it forward a bit? Put that over here too. Touch, make that dimple deeper. Yeah, now it's looking like something. Just want to up the values over here. Even though it's not my reference, you can do it anyway. So that's where paintings kind of come to life, you know, when you start to stray outside of the reference. Remember, it's just a starting point. It's meant to inspire us, give us a little direction. I like to think of it as a roadmap, you know, that just kind of sits in my glove box. I probably won't need it, but if I do, I'll sure be glad I had it when I did. So whenever I'm on a painting and I start to get frustrated, that's when I bring up the reference. It's good to use it, pull it away. Use it, pull it away. You know, I'm not solely relying on that, but it's there in case you need it. So now I just like to do something a little interesting. Those edges, you know? Kind of be creative with it however you choose. This is a pretty go-to technique for me. It's easy, simple, it's expressive. Really works well against highlights. You can see how powerful this is. It's because all these darks surrounding it. Dark, 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 dark. Over here, it's not as powerful. So what we can do is just a little bit of that. Just to bump up that contrast. This gives a little bit more movement. Creates a greater contrast in that area. Do the same over here. Loose. Stay loose. And then, if it's a little too much, I feel like it's too much, I need more holes here. Q-tips. That's how I make these. Because it's the only signature thing I do. I like to put a lot of wacky shapes everywhere and then pick out